way. You can't flip up on me because you're an inferior comedian. I'm going to destroy you, and I'm never going to call you out of your name. I'm never going to say anything disrespectful to people that look like you. It's a very thin line I got to call, but this lady is trying to embarrass me in front of a largely homosexual fan base.
The moment he tried to put Katt Williams and Lil Boosie in their place was the moment he lost control of the narrative, forever. This wasn't a clapback. This was a calculated public dismantling. Cameras rolling, millions watching, the internet screaming. It was a raw, unfiltered, street-level execution of a polished Hollywood image. And by the time the smoke cleared, the man in the suit was left standing alone, his authority shattered, his legacy questioned.
Some of these things are the reason that the enemy decides to go ahead and let you be famous, is your ability to tear down your own kind, no matter how high they are.
Welcome to Behind the Fame. Strap in. Tonight, we're pulling back the velvet curtain on the feud that cracked Hollywood's facade wide open. This is the story of how two truth-tellers, two street-certified icons, went head-to-head with one of the biggest entertainment empires alive and made the king flinch on his own throne. It all started with what fans are now calling a verbal threat. Not in a back alley, not with fists, but with words, slick and sharp, delivered from behind a polished desk on a national stage.
Yeah.
The crowd laughed, but two men weren't laughing. Everybody knew who that warning was for. The target was painted in neon. For months, Katt Williams had been a human flamethrower, torching the carefully constructed images of Hollywood's elite. Kevin Hart, Tiffany Haddish, and yes, Steve Harvey. He called them corporate puppets, sellouts. So when Steve, the ultimate gatekeeper, decided to clap back, the streets leaned in. This wasn't just talk. This was a declaration of war. Now, you have to understand Katt Williams. He doesn't fear a network. He doesn't fear a studio. He doesn't fear a fancy suit. His motto, I ain't in Hollywood, I'm in the truth business. And he lives by it.
The fact that before I go in there, she has a conversation about, okay, now, I just want to talk to you because you just won an Emmy for the city of Atlanta, and this is in Atlanta, and they just want to hear about the Emmy and hear from you and to thank you for what you did putting the city on. Right.
So when Steve Harvey threw that slick-veiled jab about knocking out comedians, Katt took it personally. He didn't wait. He didn't call a publicist. He went live, face to camera, fire in his eyes, boom. The internet detonated. Memes, reposts, reactions. It was a digital wildfire. But just when the heat was at its peak, just when everyone thought the drama had hit its ceiling, a new voice entered the chat, and he turned the temperature to Inferno. Lil Boosie saw Katt holding the line and said, nah, we ain't letting this slide. See, Boosie and Katt, different worlds, same cloth, both raw, both unfiltered, allergic to anything fake. When Boosie saw Steve Harvey, the talk show host, flexing like a street boss, he went nuclear. That's when it got real. That's when the line was drawn in the sand. The internet exploded for a second time, and Steve Harvey's image as the calm, wise, unflappable OG began to fracture in real time. But hold up. You think this feud came out of nowhere? You think this is just about a few slick words? You are wrong. This beef is buried deep. This is about respect, legacy, and the soul of comedy itself. Back in 2018, Katt went on record, and he wasn't joking. People laughed then too, but Katt meant every word. In his eyes, he's the guardian of the truth, the real deal who never bent the knee. Steve, he represents the corporate machine, clean, safe, sanitized for your protection. That clash of energy has been simmering for a decade, and now the pot has boiled over. And when you throw Lil Boosie into that boiling pot, oh, it's a wrap. Boosie doesn't play industry games. He's not Hollywood. He's hood. No filter, no script, just straight, uncut truth. And he'd been side-eyeing Steve's entire transformation into the Dr. Phil of Black America. That hit a nerve, a big one. Steve didn't like being clowned, and instead of taking the high road, he snapped. He fired back with a line that would become the match to the gasoline. And there it was. What was meant to be a clever clapback, a flex of seniority, sounded to Katt and Boosie like one thing and one thing only, a direct threat. The response wasn't just a clapback, it was a coordinated strike. Boosie went live from his car, the atmosphere thick, talking wild and raw. The chat was moving a mile a minute, pure chaos. And then Katt entered the frame, calm, collected. But his words were scalpels. The internet lost its mind. It was a digital tsunami. Comments, hearts, shares. It was a firestorm of public opinion. Steve Harvey never joined that live. He never went face to camera. His silence was deafening. And in that silence, the narrative was written without him. Fans started asking the hard questions. Is Steve Harvey really threatening people? Why is he so mad if he's so secure? The same audience that once called him Uncle Steve was now side-eyeing him, wondering if the wisdom was just a well-rehearsed act. The tide was turning. And this right here is where this story transforms. This was never just about three men and their egos. This was a battle for the soul of the culture itself. On one side, Steve Harvey, the establishment, the man with the platforms, the network deals, the syndicated shows, the polished Hollywood-backed power. On the other, Katt Williams and Lil Boosie, the people's champions, the ones with the streets, the raw, unfiltered truth that doesn't need a teleprompter. When Steve dropped that knock you out line, it became a symbol. It was the sound of the old guard trying to assert dominance over the new school. A generation that protects the system versus a generation that exposes it. And the people were watching. Clips of Steve looking tense on his radio show started spreading. Fans analyzed his body language, his forced smile, his slightly shaky voice. The internet, ever the ruthless jury, didn't hold back. Boosie and Katt just tag-teamed Steve Harvey. It's the culture versus the corporation. Steve Harvey talks too much about God to be out here threatening people. Steve's brand, built over decades on respectability and polished wisdom, was cracking. And through those cracks, the truth was bleeding out. The drama is exploding, and we're just getting to the heart of it. You do not want to miss what happens next. If you're living for this uncut, behind-the-scenes truth, you need to be part of this family. Hit that subscribe button right now, and don't forget to smash the bell icon so you never miss when we drop these explosive breakdowns. The next chapter of this story is where everything gets even more real. Now, back to the chaos. While Steve stayed quiet, Boosie came back swinging days later, doubling down with the force of a sledgehammer. But it was his next line that became the battle cry for an entire movement. Let that sink in. That is the core of this entire conflict. Who truly owns the microphone? The one who buys the stage or the one who earns the trust? Katt Williams, the strategist, stayed calm, but his next words were perhaps the most devastating of all. Instant classic. The comment sections erupted in flames, but Katt wasn't finished. He delivered the final soul-piercing dagger, and that was the checkmate. Because whether you love him or hate him, you cannot deny one thing. Katt Williams' career is a monument to his own principles. He might not have Hollywood's approval, but he has the streets. And in this new era, that currency is worth more than gold. By the end of the week, it was a full-blown cultural moment. Blogs, podcasts, radio shows, everyone was covering it. This was bigger than gossip. It was a referendum on authenticity. Steve Harvey's camp put out word he was disappointed and done responding to childish nonsense. But his silence was a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. The internet flooded that vacuum with a verdict. Memes everywhere. Steve's face photoshopped on a boxer covering up. Katt, cool as a fan, with the caption, "Still undefeated." Boosie's quote, "The streets talkin'," plastered over images of a microphone. The underdogs had not just spoken, they had checkmated the king on the global stage. No filters, no scripts, just pressure. Let's be clear. All three of these men are legends in their own right. Steve Harvey paved the way. He built empires. He opened doors. Katt Williams is the truth teller, the necessary voice in a room full of echoes. Lil Boosie is the unfiltered eye of the culture, the voice of the people. But when ego takes the wheel, nobody walks away clean. So, what happens next? Does Steve break his silence with a nuclear response? Does he let it go, hoping time will heal these wounds? Or do they meet in some shadowy, behind-the-scenes summit and broker a fragile peace? One thing is for certain, this moment exposed a seismic shift in the cultural landscape. The audience is done with rehearsed sermons and polished fake wisdom. They crave real voices, raw energy, truth that comes straight from the gut, not from a PR team's memo. And that is exactly what Katt Williams and Lil Boosie delivered. Boosie summed it all up with a line so perfect it became the epitaph for this entire showdown. That's the lesson. Steve Harvey tried to use the old rules, authority, platform, seniority, to silence the new energy. But you cannot threaten the truth. When you step to two men who have built their entire legacies on the bedrock of honesty, the whole world watches. And the whole world knows exactly who is real and who is just the performing. The energy has shifted. The throne is no longer safe. The people have the power, and they're listening to the ones who speak to them, not at them. So we turn it over to you, the behind the fame family. The jury of public opinion. Was Steve Harvey out of line for threatening Katt and Boosie? Or did they cross a line by dragging it all into the public square? The internet is split right down the middle. The debate is raging. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep it 100. Let's keep it real. If you're rocking with the uncut truth, hit that like button. It lets us know you want more deep dives like this. We've exposed the layers, pulled back the curtain, and given you the story behind the fame. This is your host reminding you that in a world of filters, the truth always hits different. See you on the next one. Trust me, the next story is even wilder.